of Flint. Here's the president.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. All right. Let me do some business here. Let me begin by recognizing some of the guests who are here. Your mayor, Karen Weaver, is here. I know Governor Rick Schneider is here. No. Because he's here to, we're doing some business here. Members of Congress are here, including your outstanding Senator, Debbie Stabenow. Flint's own Dan Kildee is here. Debbie Dingell is here. Brenda Lawrence is here. John Conyers is here. And Sandy Levin is here. An outstanding Michigan delegation. We got Secretary Sylvia Burwell, who is the head of Health and Human Services, works for me. And Administrator Gina McCarthy is here as well. I want to thank Superintendent Bilal Talab and Principal Tim Breen for their hospitality. And I want to thank all of you for being here. Now, not too long ago, I received a letter from a young lady, an 8-year-old girl named Mari Coveney. You may know her as Little Miss Flint.
US 12 West of Michigan Avenue toward Ypsilanti.
Those of you who have seats, please feel free to sit down so folks can see behind you. If you don't have a seat, don't sit down. And like a lot of you, Mari's been worried about what happened here in Flint. She's worried about what it means for children like her. She's worried about the future of this city and this community.
US 12 West of Michigan Avenue.
So in the middle of a tragedy that should have never happened here in the United States of America, the denial of something as basic
in a quarter mile,
as clean,
turn right onto
safe
West Michigan
drinking
Avenue
water.
toward Saline.
This 8-year-old girl spoke out and marched, and like many of you
13
protested.
miles, take exit 194A
As
to
Mary
merge
was
onto I-275
getting ready to hop on a bus
south
to
toward
Washington, she
Toledo.
wrote to ask if she could meet with me while she was in town. There she is. Now, I would have been happy to see Mari in Washington. But when something like this happens, a young girl shouldn't have to go to Washington to be hurt. I thought her president should come to Flint to meet with her. And that's why I'm here. To tell you directly that I see you and I hear you. And I want to hear directly from you about how this public health crisis has disrupted your lives, how it's made you angry, it's made you worried. And I just had a chance to meet with a few of your neighbors in a roundtable discussion. And I heard from them what I know a lot of you are feeling. That a lot of you are scared. That all of you feel let down. And I told them that I understood why you'd be afraid. Not just for yourself, but for your kids. I also wanted to come here, though, to tell you that I've got your back. That we're paying attention. So I met and heard directly from those who are leading the federal response and who are working hard to make sure that Flint is whole again, and to make sure that this proud city bounces back not just to where it was, but stronger than ever. And I want all of you to know I am confident that Flint will come back. I will not rest, and I'm going to make sure that the leaders at every level of government don't rest until every drop of water that flows to your homes is safe to drink and safe to cook with and safe to bathe in, because that's part of the basic responsibilities of a government in the United States of America. So as president, I've sent Flint the best resources our federal government has to support our state and local partners. The agencies that serve you, the agencies that specialize in health and housing, and those that support small businesses and our kids' education, those that are responsible for the food that our children eat, and of course the water we drink. Everybody's on duty. The National Guard is on duty. This is a hands-on-deck situation, all hands on deck. Because if there's a child who feels neglected on the north side of Flint, or a family on the east side of this city who wonders whether they should give up on their hometown and move away, or an immigrant who wonders whether America means what we say about being a place where we take care of our own, that matters to all of us. Not just in Flint, not just in Michigan, but all across America. Flint's recovery is everybody's responsibility. And I'm going to make sure that responsibility is met. So I just talked with some of the team of responders that are on the ground to make sure that they're coordinated. And they're doing some incredible things. They've distributed enough water to fill more than 3 Olympic-sized swimming pools. They've distributed thousands of filters. They're helping students afford nutritious food that work against the contaminants in bad water. They're making sure new moms have access to instant infant formula that doesn't require water. They've expanded health services for children and pregnant women and education programs for Flint's youngest children. They're out there testing homes for lead and testing children for exposure to lead. But like all our best responses in tough times, this is not a government effort alone. We need our businesses and nonprofits and philanthropies to step up. And what's incredible about Flint is how many volunteers have already been leading the way. We have members of one union, UA Local 370, that have donated tens of thousands of dollars and 10,000 hours of their time. They've installed thousands of filters, hundreds of faucets by going door to door, night and day. They're not asking for anything in return, they're just doing the right thing. So many Americans here in Flint and around the country have proven that you don't have to be a plumber or a pipe fitter to pitch in, although it's very helpful if you're a plumber or a pipe fitter. So in March, dozens of accountants teamed up with the American Red Cross to help residents recycle all the plastic water bottles that have been piling up. Religious and community groups are organizing supply drives, supporting families, offering free medical services. The director of a local dance studio, I understand, found a creative way to help. She's letting people use her studio as a space to support one another by sharing their stories and realizing they're not alone. Even inmates at an Indiana prison came together to donate more than $2,500 to the people of Flint. And a second grader from Virginia, a young man named Isaiah Britt, set up a website to see if he could raise $500 for hand sanitizers to send to the kids at Eisenhower Elementary here in Flint. So Isaiah, it's fair to say, surpassed his goal because he raised $15,000. And he explained that the experience taught him, just because you're small doesn't mean you can't do big things. So when you think of all those stories, it should be clear that the American people care about Flint. The American people are paying attention and they care about you. And as is true when disasters strike in other ways, people pitch in, they come together because they imagine, all right, that could have been me. That's the good news. The bad news is that this should not have happened in the first place. And even though the scope of the response looks sort of like the efforts we're used to seeing after a natural disaster, that's not what this was. This was a man-made disaster. This was avoidable. This was preventable. Now, I'm not here to go through the full history of what happened. Like a lot of manufacturing towns, Flint's economy has been taking hits for decades now. Plants closing, jobs moving away, manufacturing has shrunk, and that's made it harder for the city to maintain city services. And let's face it, government officials at every level weren't attentive to potential problems the way they should have been. So they start getting short-staffed, they start getting a shrinking tax base, more demand for services, things start getting strained, and there's not enough help from the outside. And then when Flint's finances collapsed, an emergency manager was put in place whose mandate was primarily to cut at all costs. And then some very poor decisions were made. All these things contributed to this crisis. Many of you know the story. Now, I do not believe that anybody consciously wanted to hurt the people in Flint. And this is not the place to sort out every screw-up that resulted in contaminated water. But I do think there's a larger issue that we have to acknowledge. Because I do think that part of what contributed to this crisis was a broader mindset, a bigger attitude, a corrosive attitude that exists in our politics and exists in our too many levels of our government. And it's a mindset that believes that less government is the highest good, no matter what. It's a mindset that says environmental rules designed to keep your water clean or your air clean are optional or not that important or unnecessarily burden businesses or taxpayers. It's an ideology that undervalues the common good, says we're all on our own and what's in it for me and how do I do well, but I'm not going to invest in what we need as a community. And as a consequence, you end up seeing an underinvestment in the things that we all share that make us safe, that make us whole, that give us the ability to pursue our own individual dreams. So we underinvest in pipes underground. We underinvest in bridges that we drive on, and the roads that connect us, and the schools that move us forward. And this is part of the attitude, this is part of the mindset. We especially underinvest when the communities that are put at risk are poor or don't have a lot of political clout, and so are not as often heard in the corridors of power. And this kind of thinking, this myth that government's always the enemy, that forgets that our government is us. It's us. You know, it's an extension of us, ourselves. You know, that attitude is as corrosive to our democracy as the stuff that resulted in lead in your water. Because what happens is it leads to systemic neglect. It leads to carelessness and callousness. It leads to a lot of hidden disasters that you don't always read about and aren't as flashy, but that over time diminish the life of a community and make it harder for our young people to succeed. In one of the roundtables, listening to somebody, I think it was a pastor who told me, you know, it made us feel like we didn't count. And you can't have a democracy where people feel like they don't count, where people feel like they're not heard. And that attitude ignores how this country was built, our entire history, which is based on the idea that we're all connected and that what happens in a community like Flint matters to everybody. And that there are things that we can only do together as a nation, as a people, as a state, as a city, that no man is an island. You know, we've been debating this since the Republic began. What are individual responsibilities and what are our collective responsibilities? And that's a good debate. But I've always believed what the first Republican president, a guy named Abraham Lincoln, said. He said we should do individually those things that we do best by ourselves, but through our government we should do together what we can't do as well for ourselves. So it doesn't matter how hard you work, how responsible you are, how well you raise your kids. You can't set up a whole water system for a city. That's not something you do by yourself. You do it with other people. You can't hire your own fire department or your own police force or your own army. There are things we have to do together, basic things that we all benefit from. And that's how we invested in a rail system and a highway system. That's how we invested in public schools. That's how we invested in science and research. That's how we invested in community colleges and land-grant colleges like Michigan State. We invest. Can I get some water? Come on up there. Give me some water. I want a glass of water. I want a glass of water. Sit down. I'm all right. I'm going to get a glass of water right here. Just make sure we find one. It'll be filtered. Hold on, I'm going to talk about that in a second. Settle down, everybody. Where was I? We invested in our communities and our cities. And by making those investments in the common good, we invested in ourselves. That's the platform we create that allows each of us independently to succeed. That's what made America great. So the people in Flint and across Michigan and around the country, individuals and church groups and, you know, non-for-profits and community organizations, you've proven that the American people will step up when required, and our volunteers, our non-for-profits, they're the lifeblood of our communities. We so appreciate what you do.